Well, if you needed any more proof that the critics were out of touch, look no further than Joker, which I just saw today. I thought that this movie was absolutely fantastic. It's probably one of the best superhero related movies I've probably ever seen. I have to say, like, for me, as far as the enjoyment level, this was superior to a lot of Marvel and DC movies that have been released in recent memory. As far as the storytelling and being character driven, this is a film that really succeeded in what it set out to do, showing a man's slow descent into insanity. And this movie was, not devoid of controversy, to say the least, and that has a lot to do with the critical reception that the film has received. Now, let's take a look right here and see what I'm talking about. So, as you can see, we have Joker here on Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't even know how this is certified fresh when it has a 69%. Let's see, what's the critics' consensus? So remember, this is like an overall average. Rotten Tomatoes is kind of like the epitome here of like everything when it comes to critics. So Joker gives its infamous central character a chillingly plausible origin story that serves as a brilliant showcase for its star and a dark evolution for comics-inspired cinema. So why do they have 69% with 399 professional critical scores and the 91% audience score? And that is even now with Rotten Tomatoes. They make you get verified somehow now, so not anyone could just post a review. So that was out of 14,779. I'd say if that's an average, that's pretty damn good. So I don't know how they've arrived at this, but let's see if we could try to get to the bottom of this. I mean, look at all of these, like the exploded tomato. So we've got Salon.com, which, I mean, that speaks for itself. Joker is a movie that you ignore at your own peril. So, I could only guess without reading the article, without reading the review, what he means by that. Bleak and juvenile from The Guardian. I mean, right here, this Jordan Hoffman doesn't seem to know what the hell he's talking about. Bleak and juvenile. So, let me just say a little something here first before we go in too far and start reading the reviews, because this is a review after all of Joker, and I don't want to let these opinions overshadow my opinion, because overall it's my review, and I'm just showing these to show you just how irrelevant these critics are and how they've missed the mark and how they will, probably hit a few people here and there where they're gonna you might be a fan of a critic, and keep in mind this is not Leonard Maltin or Roger Ebert, where you really respect their opinions because you could always see where those guys were coming from. There was, Siskel and Ebert, I mean, just classic right there. You definitely knew where these guys stood when it came to film, but these are the goofballs of today. Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job showing a man who suffered from mental illness and the way how the story is told. Joker gets a name, which, in the comics he doesn't have a name. He's gone by many different names. In the 1989 Batman, it was Jack, and here it's Arthur. And so we learned that not only does Arthur have a tormented past with his mother, but this is a guy that doesn't seem to have a lot of luck. He has an uncontrollable laughing condition. I have to say, when Joaquin does that laugh, it is discomforting. It's chilling You literally feel uncomfortable when you hear him do that laugh. And that was something that I didn't get from Jack Nicholson, or from Heath Ledger, or from Jared Leto, or any of the Jokers. You always like, oh, the Joker's laughing, he sounds maniacal, but you never felt like uncomfortable, listening to it. And that's when I knew that, this method acting that Joaquin Phoenix, uses as a device to really channel home his character, whatever it may be that he is playing, it really worked, superbly in this film. And, you see that, of course, one of the big problems with the critics was, the level of violence that this was going to, introduce, to the world. And, they were going to see this, and they were worried because of current events that some people may watch these films and be influenced by them in some way. Blaming media for it. Not blaming the media, being the news media, but blaming, movies. So, what is it this week? Is it video games? Is it movies? So, this week it's movies. It's Joker. It got to the point where even the critic Todd Phillips even said about John Wick 3, how come, this guy can, kill, like 300 people, and no one bats an eye. Like, that's a critically acclaimed film. I mean, let's take a look here. So if that is the narrative that we're trying to say here, like, oh, these movies are too violent, and in our current day and age, it's, unacceptable to put these kinds of films out. Well, take a look here. John Wick 3, which is, it's certified fresh. It's 90%. Even less reviews posted to Rotten Tomatoes for that one, but 90%, nothing wrong with this one. You'll see, like, across the board, there's only a few here that are negative. Let's see, for example, well, that's the UK. I'm not going to even read that. Let's see, San Diego Reader. This guy looks a little bit like Napoleon Dynamite, but let's see, it's rather like when Bond films went from Sean Connery to Roger Moore. Plenty of people will find this copacetic, I have no idea, copacetic, I'm sorry. A few will gross out about what's been lost, a touch of the real amid the merely fantastic. I have no idea even what he means right there. Sometimes, like I said, they'll string together like, oh, I'm the critic, I know so much about films, but like, what are you even saying here? So let's read another one here. What is this? M+1. Okay, we're done there. So right from there you could see the critics just, they had nothing to say. So anyway, you've got John Wick. That's a super violent movie, and director Todd Phillips is right. So many people perishing in that films at the hands of John, and like no one had a problem with. Now, I get it. Let's play devil's advocate like we always do here on this channel and see, the opposing view. Okay, so this one's a bit more psychological. Current events comes to mind where those things were psychological. These people had, deep-rooted issues in their mind that committed horrific events. So, you've got to think to yourself, why? Why are we going to go after a movie if it's a fictional character? Anyone could really do anything, based on, like, what they see. Is there, I don't think it, the Amazing Atheist put up a good point the other day and said, do these movies influence people to do these things? They act as inspiration. Are they the sole reason? Of course not. Something like the Joker is not going to, drive someone 100% to do something. Could it maybe flip the switch or add to it? Maybe, but like, Are we going to direct movies? Are we going to distribute movies based on fear that something like that could happen? You have to keep in mind that, fictional tales have been being told, not just in movies, but in books for hundreds of years. So it's like, we're supposed to, make life bland and boring and not produce these things. It's not like the media, doesn't parade things, when they do happen 24/7. It's not like people would get ideas from pre-existing stories. Now, I know people are probably going to say, well, this could probably stop things from happening. But, it's a movie. And why is this, why is this like the sole thing that's being targeted? Why must we point fingers? And why must it affect its rating? As a film, can't we judge it based on its own merits? Do we have to base it on, what's going on in society around us? Now, I know that it's very simple to just, bash it and be like, okay, so, these critics, they don't know what they're talking about. I've said that time and time again, and I'm saying it again in this review quite a few times because it's true. But, okay, so maybe like cinema should reflect, our current emotions and play off of that. But then again, that would be playing it safe, and that's boring. Why would we want to see films that would be predictable and we know are going to satisfy us in a certain way? Maybe we don't want happy-go-lucky. Maybe we do want something dark and menacing and foreboding and not full of, this lighthearted charm. I mean, the Joker certainly does have charm in a dark and twisted way. But, it's uncomfortable for a reason, because that's what they set out to do. They want people to think about this, think about mental illness. And I mean, that's the problem, which is one thing that this film does do right. That's what it does right. It gets people thinking about mental illness. It gets people thinking that, maybe we should be nicer to certain people that have problems. And, there's a lot of interesting narratives in this film that they don't feel heavy-handed, but they're definitely present. And, you would think that there is a little bit of, of a political message in here, especially when they talk about like the rich not caring. We see Arthur's Department of Health program. His therapist is cut from the city, and he no longer could get his medication, and the chain of events just unfolds from there. So you see, like, it's very real, and maybe that's what people had a problem with. People don't like real, because if it gets too real, they shy away from it, because they like to, be sheltered from the truth. But that's not always a good thing. Why should we be sheltered from the truth? Shouldn't we be informed? Shouldn't we have thoughts? Like, why would you want to keep seeing the same thing over and over? This, if anything, in this day and age, is probably more relevant than ever. The more and more, as time has gone on, that we've learned about mental illness, it's like we still seem like we really haven't learned. The information is at our fingertips. We're on the internet. We're making videos about it. We're writing reviews, bashing it. Like right here, Dana Stevens from Slade, a top critic. I beg to differ. Joker is a bad movie. Yes, it's predictable, cliched, deeply derivative of other better movies, and overridden to the point of self-parody. I mean, overridden? If anything, this film was very modest. It had a very modest running time. It didn't feel egotistical and bloated. Todd Phillips basically went in and got out and did what he had to do. Had an effective movie with a nice beginning. We're introduced to Arthur, a body. We see how society has affected him, and the chain of events leads to what we see in the eventual conclusion, where mass chaos reigns supreme. Predictable, perhaps a bit, but they definitely did throw in a few things there. Did we know that we were going to see Thomas Wayne there? Did we know that we were going to see an appearance from Bruce Wayne in there? Did we think that we were going to see Arthur actually go up to Wayne Manor? Did we think that we were going to see, you know, Arthur, you know, kill the people that he did, kill one of his friends, and the way that the movie ended? Did we expect to see those things? I don't know. You know, the thing is, what were you expecting from this film? And see, deeply derivative of other better movies. Derivative of what exactly? I would love to know exactly what Dana means by that. What is it derivative of? First of all, I have to say that what this movie does that others haven't is that it is the first time that they have had a supervillain in their own movie. Now, you can say Venom, but I mean, I think that Tom Hardy did a great job in that film, but, you know, he was casted in a more positive light. The symbiote took over his body and mind, and he wasn't really able to always have free will, and there was still a villain. Here, the villain is the world and society and Gotham and you know, and the things that have happened in Arthur's past. So what is it derivative of exactly? What are we saying? How is it overridden? How is it cliched when we never have actually seen a movie about something like this, where the movie's all about a supervillain and telling us about this supervillain and not about his plot to, you know, end Batman? You know, that's not what this was about for like the first time ever. This was just about him. And, you know, what do we see here? A movie of a cynicism so vast and pervasive as to render the viewing experience even emptier than its slapdash aesthetic does. Well, you know, right there, empty. I don't think that this film could have been more full of life. It was full of life, but at the same time, it was full of despair. It is a deep, dark movie full of a lot of character and a lot of personality. So, I mean, like, where are they getting these words? How are they describing the movie in this fashion when it's not really opinion at the point where it starts to become a lie? Because, you know, to say that the movie is empty, I mean, that's an opinion. I guess it would also be an opinion to walk out on a rainy, muggy day and say, oh, it's beautiful outside. I mean, most people would disagree and would probably only associate that with a bright, sunny summer day, but there are probably people who would say that, you know, that would be something, you know, visually acceptable to them. So, if you're feeling insufficiently anxious in your life, Joker could be just the ticket. If not, look elsewhere to be entertained. Again, I don't know exactly what he means by that. The theatrical trailer for Joker, tight, controlled, and intriguing, suggested the best movie Martin Scorsese ever made. The actual movie is a shallow and sophomoric effort that isn't about a raging bull as much as it's merely raging. Like, wait, where is this guy from? Creative Loafing? I mean, this guy must have been loafing around when he made that review. Like, what are you even saying, man? I mean, you know, we have to, like, bring it all in here and just say, like, what are these critics thinking when they write these reviews? Like, what were they expecting from the Joker? What did they want the movie to be? You know, it was either that it was empty or that it was overridden. You see the two things there, overridden and empty. So, like, which one is it? Now, it's two people's different opinion. But you see pretty much where I'm coming from here. The critics went in with a narrative. They don't like this movie. They wanted to tank this movie. Of course, this movie ended up setting records for having one of the biggest openings of all time. It might have been the biggest opening of all time. I'm not quite sure, but you know, they knocked it out of the park with this one. And you've got to say that these critics are looking like a bunch of goofballs now, because they, you know, thought that they had control of the narrative. They thought that they said a few bad things, and they tried to play off of people's emotions. Ooh, you shouldn't see this movie. This is a bad movie. And some people in some corners even pushed for this movie to be stopped and not, you know, distributed to theaters and not to be shown to the general public. Which is completely insane. It goes without saying. Can you imagine stopping a movie just because you don't like what it's about, because you think it might have an ill effect on society? I mean, to expect that there's 1,000 little jokers out there running around who are going to do terrible things and to try to emulate a movie. Like, I mean, how have we reached this point in 2019 where, if anything, our thoughts should be advanced? We should be, you know, thinking on a whole new plateau. We should learn from the mistakes of the past. We should know that, like, certain ideas are completely irrelevant and stupid and dumb and crazy talk. But no, you know, we're still spinning our wheels in society, trying to fight a movie from coming out, a genuinely good movie that has a lot of life to it, a lot of personality, and does what it sets out to do. And the thing is, the movie really isn't even that consistently violent. When it is violent, it's violent. It's graphic. It's you know, some horrific violence. But thing is, they pick their spots in this film. You know, when, you know, Arthur does do something violently horrible, you really seem shocked. And I saw this in a you know, a small theater with a small audience, and their reaction was, you know, quite vocal. So I can only imagine seeing this in a large, you know, multiplex theater. Like seeing it in an AMC, like what people's reaction would have been. Because if something that small scale had such a big reaction, you can only imagine a big crowd's big, massive reaction to it. So it was shocking. It was used effectively. And, you know, when someone met their ultimate end, you really felt it. Not like John Wick just plowing through a bunch of guys, but here it really felt violent. It felt shocking. It felt, you know, horrible. You really felt it when someone got it, and it was, you know, it was a really effective film. Like I said, it takes you to a deep, dark place, and that's maybe why there were a few concerns. But, you know, were the people writing these negative reviews really concerned? Or are they just trying to fit in with their peers? Because I think it's more of that. So, I think if you want to see a really great performance, if you want to see Joaquin Phoenix possibly at his best, if you want to see a great character-driven film with so much to offer, if you want to see someone, you know, and see someone's, like, life story, and it's the life of a famous iconic villain. If you want to see what makes him tick and what led to his downfall or his uprising, depending on the perspective, this is the film that you want to see, and I greatly recommend it. I greatly enjoyed it, and I think that, you know, if you genuinely, you know, see what this movie has to offer, I think you're going to appreciate it. If you truly see when you watch the movie what it's trying to do and what it set out to do, I think you will see it as a success and a very entertaining, very thought-provoking, very moving movie. Now, I understand the concerns, like people are saying, well, you know, why are we casting villains in sympathetic roles? Come on now. We've been doing this for quite some time, casting villains in sympathetic roles where it's not their fault and something, you know, led to them doing something bad, you know, where it was bad decision making. And I get it. That's why people are like down on this, but it's not like it hasn't been done before. You know, like that writer for that reviewer, that critic for Slade wrote, you know, saying that it was derivative and all that, you know, yeah, that type of sympathetic thing, that's been done before, not quite in this vein. But you see, you know, the thoughts are all jumbled here. You know, basically when you really apply some logic to those reviews and think about the film and how other films have approached this subject, they've done it from a much different way. You know, at no point does the character receive redemption. Does he have an epiphany where, oh, my actions are wrong, I should probably try to correct this problem? No, it probably does the exact opposite. Arthur only gets worse and worse right up until the credits end. So it's, you know, the man is not repentful. We see him as a bad guy, not as a good guy. So there is no turn or anything like that towards the end, you know, which will show people that he's not a good person, you know. But then again, you could say, well, he can't fully help it due to his mental condition. But that is what makes the movie so intriguing, so interesting, and so great, is because it makes you think. The fact that we could even talk about this at this length and have all these different thoughts and all these different opinions, it could cause this level of controversy. That is the mark of a truly great film. And that is why I'm giving it my full-on recommendation. This was an amazing, great film that needs to be seen. I mean, seriously, I don't know. Like, that's why you're seeing it. You're getting this review today, because I had to run out and see it. And see, it's working against the critics, because they don't understand controversy sells. This movie might have not had such the opening if the media didn't flip their you-know-what. You know? So, it worked against them, because they intrigued people. They, you know, tickled their curiosity. And I'm happy that it did, because I think, if anything, you know, as many people as possible should probably see this film, especially if they're a fan of, you know, of the Batman series and the character of the Joker, or just enjoys a really good story. Now, the one thing I will say, it is very dark. It is gritty beyond gritty. It's not a movie that's going to put you in a good mood. So if you're, you know, not really in the best of moods, and you know, you need something to lift your spirits, this is probably not the movie to see at that time. I'll just say that. But anyway, it is definitely worth your time, and I am very impressed of what I've seen. And I didn't know that Todd Phillips directed the Hangover trilogy. No wonder he put out such a great film. Now, I mean, now you compare this movie to the Hangover, and it's quite different. And he was a writer on Borat. So I gotta say, I'm a fan of this guy, especially after this film. So guys, thank you all for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. And I will see you next time.